I think it's live. Hey, what's going on? There we go. Hey, we're live. This is the sexy show. And I've lost the comments. There we go. Welcome. Hey, look, it's me. I'm here. I exist. It's been a few weeks since I've seen you all, so I'm glad that I could make it. We're a little earlier this week. We're probably going to stick with this schedule for a little while longer, see how it goes for everybody. Hopefully, Damien can make it next week. But so look for us at this time going forward, just to make it easier dealing with people from overseas and such. Some sort of reasonable hour for most people. So welcome. Nice to see you.
Very nice.
Of course, Earl Grey is here, and of course, La Raza is here. Welcome. It's nice to see you both.
Mm-hmm.
I was
Nice
watching. I did watch the replays on the stuff when you guys were talking, so it was good to kind of sort of live vicariously through the chat. Although it was difficult because I was talking to the screen a lot more than I normally do because I just felt like I should be there. So I was having conversations with myself in the basement.
But it wouldn't be a problem just to jump in, I figure. Or
oh no, this was after the fact, afterwards,
after
like
the fact,
late at night watching the video. Yeah, after it already broadcasted. I was
some reflex.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Did you
so
hear
before
our?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
So did you hear our blabbing about you on the chat then? How
I
much
heard a
you
little bit of
complained?
shit talking about me. Yeah, totally. Yeah, a little bit.
We complained enormously. We were thinking we were let down 2 weeks in a row, and it's like that's many excuses, and you're like, what the hell, man?
You know, when those opportunities come for a sudden date afternoon and date night with your wife, I've learned from experience on wife number 3 that you have to take those. You have to get those options in there. So before we start with comic talk, if I've learned one thing in my years, so before we start comic talk, one of the things I just wanted to talk to you both about briefly is, did you both see that the shoot interviews are back for the Kayfabe channel?
I have seen it, but I haven't watched it.
Dude, it's Jeff Darrow for like 3
Yeah,
hours.
Jeff Darrow. Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Oh.
I missed that shit. What the fuck?
It just came out this morning. It just came out today.
Okay. Oh, I had my husband's birthday today, so I have an excuse. Even though I'm here, I asked very nicely. I said, "Do you want me to cancel? Because there's people canceling, so I can cancel. I'm okay with that." And he's like, "No, you just go. It's fine. We're later. You're doing later. We had the early morning birthday rather than evening, so I'm still here." But I asked, okay.
Yeah, that's good. I'm glad you asked his permission. We appreciate him giving you the permission to come and hang out with us. It's unbelievable. I watched about 2 hours of it, 2.5 hours of it, and it's everything that you would expect. He's an incredible guy to listen to. He seems very genuine, and he downplays his talent immensely. And just telling stories about, hanging out with Jodorowsky hypnotizing him, hanging out with Mobius, all of these things. It's really, really killer conversation so far. Yeah. And there's a new Shaolin Cowboy coming out in March, is what he was saying. It's going to be a 7-issue series. He's got about 35 pages left, he was saying in this interview, to ink. And then he's done. So once that's done, I think he said March. It's supposed to come out in March. So that'll be fantastic. So well worth checking out.
Nice.
Uh-huh.
Well, I have been actually talking about that. I've been lusting still, like regrets of a collector. The Shaolin Cowboys, like figure or statue, whatever you call it. I really want it. People keep on showing off their own, and it's like, fuck you people. You know what? I want one. It's like the Mike Mignola on Twitter. It's like, look, that's mine one. It's like, you bastard, you have it as well.
Earl Grey's off to get his, probably.
Yeah.
No.
I'm not the
do not show me this.
No. I mean, I'm German, and therefore I'm not always very polite. But this won't. I wouldn't do that to you. But in terms of figures, I'm not really a collector. I go to flea markets and buy stupid stuff like this, like I've shown you before.
Yeah.
But one thing here, really, I had to have it, and that is the most stupid figure ever.
Oh, fuck me, that's beautiful.
That's beautiful. Yeah, really.
That's amazing.
No,
that's from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. It's
Yeah.
Krang. There you can see.
You're talking to a fan.
Yeah, exactly. And that's so demented.
Yeah.
Especially you can remove the Krang out of, but it's a bit difficult. And I don't play really with it, but it's standing on my shelves, and
Yeah.
makes me smile whenever I come into this room here. It's just great. And this antenna of this guy here.
Yeah.
It's wonderful. Yeah.
This is beautiful. That's a
it's
wonderful
really nice.
find. If I find that, I would definitely get it straight away. I mean, I love those toys. I think they out of like some of them, like, you know, the designs, how they make it, but it's beautiful. Absolutely, I love it. We have this shop in where I live, the toy shop, and my kid, of course, wants to go it every single time we pass it by. So we have to go in. We have like Legos and stuff like that, and then we have figures. And they have all the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles figures. I always wanted, even the original packaging, but of course they're asking money because they are like a toy shop, and they're specializing, blah blah blah. And it's like, oh, my childhood! I remember, relived my. I remember how much I begged my mom, like, please, please. I was like, nope, you're not getting that. Like, oh my god, please! Like, and now I'm doing that to my son. He looks at me like, the toy? No.
But actually, there are some knockoffs available, at least.
Oh yeah.
And I think they look pretty much the same. I mean, they of Michelangelo and Raphael and so on. And I bought them for 20 euros or so, all 4 of them. So.
Oh right, nice.
It was really no big deal, but
yeah.
At one point, when you read Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, I was too old when this series started here. I was in my 20s or so, and toys were nothing for me. But now I think.
No, if I could, I probably would. I have this obsession. We had, I don't know if you know those Kinder eggs with a toy inside. Yeah. So. When I was completely obsessed, and of course I couldn't get a figure, so my mom decides there's this thing, the toy, and I had this little, like, you know, those toy soldier things, like little plastic teen turtle, and I cannot find it anywhere. I guess it's just one part of the world where I was from, and I'm like obsessed. I want to have it. It's like, please, can somebody sell it to me? But it's like little, like almost like HeroClix kind of like size of the figure of turtles. And I remember how much I loved that one, and I was like putting it like on a pedestal in my room. It's like, this is my figure kind of thing. I was absolutely obsessed with those turtles when I was growing up. The cartoon is just like, the minute it's on, I was like fixated, and nobody could talk to me. One time I had the hugest argument with my parents, just because they had somebody else who wanted to watch some like world news and something. I cried for about half an hour before they like, okay, just watch that fucking cartoon. We okay? Because we were like, Jesus, I was like, I'm not missing at all any of an episodes because I was just completely absorbed by it, you know. Absolutely.
That's very cool. So why don't we start? I'm curious to start with Earl Grey this week, because after the hint of last week where it was like, oh, I'm going to wait until Terrence is back, I'm curious to see what you have for us. So why don't we start with you?
Yeah, okay. I was thinking specifically about this book here, and this is in many ways not a Damien book at all. And especially since he's a very connoisseur of good coloring. And this is, I turn it a bit backwards. So it's stuff that's really, it's dark coloring. I get a feeling that it's not for him. So, but it is actually really something for me, because, I wanted to start totally differently because I've talked.
Please.
I don't know if you were there when I spoke about this book here.
No,
I don't remember.
No.
It is a German cartoonist.
Right. Yes, I do remember, because I have some of his books, the other series that he did from Catalan, I think. I remember now. Yeah, sorry, carry on.
Okay. And it is a bit Voodoo in Hamburg. That was my very short handle for it. And there is some... I had to do some... There's this... Damn it.
It always happens when you do this video.
Yeah,
You can't
yeah,
find
yeah,
it what
yeah,
you're
yeah.
looking for.
Yeah, but if not, then it's not. If I can't find it here. Yeah, this is very colored with markers and felt pens and so on, old school style. And Matthias Schultheis tries to be American in a way, is lots more clumsy German, like you can see here. And this is Daddy, a story about the second coming of Jesus. And this fat guy here is Jesus 2.0.
Wow.
And
I
he has a little Hitler given to him as sort of his blind dog for the blind, and he's his fellow through. You can here see him here, and Matthias Schultheis really doesn't pulls out all the stops, like you can see here. Our Jesus is just can cope with reality, just with different substances in his vein, and the art is sometimes pretty incredible, like here when you have the little jester Hitler in the glasses of the policeman, and sometimes really questionable. It's on the same page you can see here, I guess, the computer coloring effects here, and there it's really bad. When you see it on the page, it's like I would have done with Photoshop and doodle a bit with the mouse over it, and it's really random, and it feels a bit strange, especially today. I guess it was totally hard edge way back then. And our Jesus here, he can always save kids here from the fire, and some pretty amazing stuff here. And the whole concept of the thing here is it's totally blasphemous if you haven't thought of it for now. And it of course goes right there to the church, because the church actually wants to kill Jesus, the new Jesus, because they had a good deal going on the last 2,000 years, and this new Jesus here is a problem for them.
He's fucking up their plans,
he's fucking up their plans, and so they put him a second time on the cross.
Come on. This is incredible.
And you can imagine the comments, the comment section by wherever you can buy this book here is really divided into two parts. I mean, one part is how dare you? I mean, isn't this a bit too strong? And the other half just celebrating it. So and on some pages, maybe, and on some pages the coloring really pops off the page, and here you have the perfect, and this cross on the back on the fat guy here. I love you is
Ich liebe dich.
Ich liebe dich, genau.
Yeah.
Ich liebe dich. Yeah, that was the Matthias Schultheis in a nutshell. I mean, it's by far the crudest, craziest comic that I have, and that says something, I guess, including Prison Pit and whatever.
Right.
So
even with Johnny Ryan.
So
in the mix,
I thought maybe this is better for Terrence than for Damien.
Yeah.
If you
I'm
haven't
not as
watched
delicate sensibilities as Damien.
If you haven't watched
Sorry, Rafa,
the last Avengers movie where that fork came through, that looks exactly like this dude you just showed in the pictures.
Yeah.
Because he looks like long hair, like he has a ginormous belly, and it looks exactly like him, to be honest. It's kind of, that's why Ragamuffin was saying, inspirational for Fat Thor in movies.
And on the other hand, and that was what I'm looking for desperately in the other comic, the inspiration for him, body-wise, was obviously the dude in that movie. However, was it called?
Mhm.
The dude about the bowling.
Oh, the Big Lebowski.
Yeah, the Big Lebowski. Yes, exactly. And he appears somewhere in this book, and I still can't find. Anyhow, yeah.
Yeah.
So our Jesus is a bit shaped after the Big Lebowski dude from the Big Lebowski.
I see. Because that it does look like him as well. So
Right.
it's just because it's such a blonde hair, and so it just looks like him. And I mean, if you watch the movies,
but I will look for Matthias Schulthei's books. Now he piqued really my interest. I mean, the Night Taxi book is almost a classic, despite of some strange drawings in that one in comparison to Daddy. And I mean, he managed to get the biggest publisher here, Splitter, to publish the stuff here in a hardcover, oversized. It's just something, yeah.
Maybe you just want to show, I'm sorry, to the Pope.
Maybe.
You know, yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was Daddy. Yeah, it's
Daddy,
lovely. It looks nice. I mean, I'm glad they even actually managed to print that, but that's why comic books have that kind of a, saying of people, like especially older people who then don't understand if you're talking about like comic books or who doesn't know comics, and you show that kind of book is per example what we say. It's like blasphemy, how dare you reading comics.
Yeah, no, it's great. That's really great. Rasa, what do you got for us?
So I kind of took a break from my Sandman dwelling, but I didn't go too far away. I went into Sandman Presents the Lucifer. It's a 3 mini issue series. I have number 1. I didn't have the rest 2, but I did read it in digital format and stuff like that. So this was basically this when it came out. It was the first try for Mike Carey to basically write something about Lucifer, because afterwards he went into actual Lucifer series for Vertigo as well. Which is actually quite good to read this before you do, if you're not aware of the character itself, you haven't watched TV series, which is came out now and going out through. And I was surprised how TV series are touching quite a few things from comic books, because I'm not really much of like really well versed in Lucifer. I'm a kind of more I know it, but without reading it, kind of thing about the character. So I started to have some of it in collected issues on what I'm planning to do. When, of course, I finish my Sandman series, I will dwell more into Lucifer. But this was just something kind of like have a taste of what else there is in the Sandman universe. Of course, there's more books now recently produced, but this is something I wanted to do. So this one is by Scott Hampton as illustrator, of course Mike Carey as a writer, and Todd Klein as a letterer. And it's Lucifer Morningstar option part 1. So what we have in this mini-series is basically an angel comes down to Earth, because Lucifer is back in here, like he's back on Earth. He's gone from hell's duty. He decided to want just to have a jazz club and where he can play Lux. It's called Lux. And then so he's minding his own business, and suddenly an angel comes down, and he basically gives a position to Lucifer how to do a couple of things for them, basically for heaven, because apparently there's some god comes through or some creature comes through the earth and gives them opinion of basically gives people humans any wish they can, it comes true. So basically if you wish somebody dead, they usually dies. So of course heaven can't have that, and because it's causing a huge havoc in on earth, and of course they need people who can pray. I guess that's why they are really distraught by it. And of course in here Lucifer really felt like, if you have read a little bit more of Hellblazer. It just really felt like Hellblazer because, he's always have something up to his sleeve. So in order, if you want my help, I need something from you. And of course he gains that by, if you're going to complete the story. And how the story starts is that this family have this disabled kid who doesn't speak, and the family, of course, have two siblings. Of course, one disabled and one is proper healthy, but because family concentrating on the disabled kid, the other sibling becomes like kind of forgotten, and she has to work. And she basically gets left behind with him to take care of him. And what happens is, teenagers usually do, they want to have a party, no parents in, no matter whatever happens. If I have a brother who's in the bed, she decides to have a girls' night in, and of course, because she gets pissed off with him, she wishes him dead, and guess what happens? The brother dies, and because of that, you see his dying wish, and basically how she gets involved with Lucifer. So yeah, the story is really well told. Nothing overly complicated. It's very it gives you kind of an understanding of Lucifer. He was god of hell, and he has to go into hell to find out who is this creature doing this to the humans, and he goes in, sorts it out, and of course it ends in the way where, of course, Lucifer gains everything from whatever he wanted. But it's actually really good because in this issue here, it starts with him having that piece of present or that thing what he wanted to have for this work in this story here. So I think it's quite important to understand what he actually got. He got this piece of paper, but apparently if he's writing something on it, he can have passage to heaven. And of course, because Lucifer is a fallen angel who was working in hell and lost his wings, he is one thing he wishes back for is to gain is basically go back to heaven, even though how much he has daddy issues, and daddy as a god is like, no, you're a naughty boy, you have to go to hell. So it's really cool. As I say, it was nothing like an overly complicated storyline, but well told. And I'm becoming more and more a fan of Mike Carey's writing. It's really easy to write, to get into it. His characters, he seems to be quite open to exploration, and he's going into this kind of he's not afraid to get the character, whatever he feels like, have to get it. And that I kind of remember the angel's name. Anadil is like a brother of Lucifer's. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly, but that's the angel who comes in to ask help from Lucifer. But what I'm saying, it felt like Hellblazer because Lucifer felt like this. Like Hellblazer is always, I'm going to do for you something, but you have to gain something from me back. Like you're never going to get anything kind of in the way for free. So, but yeah, it's really well told. That's another Vertigo book, which I absolutely like reading. And Vertigo is just... it ticks every single box every single time I touch any book of theirs. So it's just a pity that we lost such a monumental publisher, to be honest, even though it was DC's part of ownership, and I wish they wouldn't have been, because imagine Vertigo as its own entity and they would be allowed to do whatever the hell they want. Whew, we would be actually really blessed having them around. So anyway.
It's interesting. I was watching a stream last night before. I don't remember what it was, but they were talking about like DC movies and stuff, and they were talking about the success of things like the Doom Patrol series and the Watchmen series. And the thing that pops into my mind is like all of that Vertigo stuff. Let's start seeing some of that get translated into shows or miniseries or whatever it is, because there's so much territory there. There's so many rich stories. And just on the Mike Carey thing, there's a series that I read. It was 19 issues called Crossing Midnight, written by Mike Carey, and it was a Vertigo book as well. And I remember loving that at the time. My CLZ's telling me it came out in 2007, 2008. Yeah, 2006 is when the first issue came out. And same kind of like it's not in that Sandman world, but just what you were saying about his writing. I remember being super impressed with the story and the way it kind of connected and flowed together. So it's a name that I don't know much else about, honestly. What else has he done?
Unwritten is another thing what really people like about.
That's right.
So this is from Fables. So he took the Fables lore and took it in his own path, I presume. I don't know that much information about Unwritten. I know one thing, that Unwritten is been talked about in Ghost Critics channels when he was doing the thing, and he was saying that he absolutely loved it because he's a fan of fables and stuff. And that's another beast I have to go and delve into, is to go into fables lore. And fables now is being reprinted, so if people wanted to get in there, it's much more easier. They have come out with those like other options of printing, because it's like 150 issues. That's quite a few. It's a big monster to go into. And even I was like, Sandman is so big, but it's actually half of fables. But you know, if it's this kind of thing of your like reading, or you like something reading like that, it's definitely, I always wanted to go into. And I've been reading quite a few issues, but I never like from the beginning till the end, which another wish in reading comic books would be is fables, to tackle that beast and make sure I have read it. So
the Lucifer series, I read them in trades, but I haven't finished it. I stuck in the middle, not because it's bad, just because I lost my oversight of the story. It started pretty clearly and straightforward in the beginning, but then was layer upon layer of magic and stuff, and I was overwhelmed by it. I read some thing aside these books, and so it was just too difficult. And I thought, hey, I have to read all the books again, and haven't started yet. But it was pretty good series. I loved the first trade immensely. The second was a bit difficult, not because. Just because it's complex. It's pretty dense.
Yeah. That's why I heard about it as well. Lucifer has also been printed in the omnibus format by DC, as far as I remember. I remember seeing that. So it's like a big chunky, probably omnibus as a edition you can see to buy.
As far as I remember, I think I bought the trade paperbacks just because they were half priced or so.
Oh, I bet I would do the same.
Maybe it was at this. Yeah.
So yeah.
Sorry, very cool. I'm still getting used to being back at the control panel and clicking buttons and everything. Very cool. So I'm going to start off with something that was kind of inspired by Earl Grey's video. He was talking about, I'm going to see if I can do this here. That went okay. He was talking in a video, I'm sure, and I think he's going to be talking about it later. He's going to be talking about Tech and Concrete. But I have the 3 books as Black and White is what it was called originally by Pulp. Released a bunch of stuff, and in the early 2000s I got a bunch of Pulp manga. And briefly what he was saying as the bus goes by, briefly what he was saying in the video was kind of the style of art in this. The anime is incredible, by the way. It's really well worth checking out. You know, the book is fantastic. Nothing, you know, they're 2 separate entities for sure. But I think that the style in the anime is really great. So it got me looking at the Pulp stuff that I have, and I started rereading this one. And I thought I'd talk about this because I've just about finished the first 2 volumes. Another one that stood out to me from Pulp is Bakuni Young by Toyokazu Matsunaga. And it's unbelievable because, again, you're getting this not your usual manga style. You're getting this very insane, almost underground kind of art. The premise to this book is this character, Bakuni Young, who we see at the beginning here at the pachinko machines. Is that what they're called? And he's just being obnoxious and loud and singing about scorched earth policy. And he gets the ire of this crime family whose last name is Fart, and one of them comes at him, and he basically just annihilates this guy. And this is like within the first 3 to 6 pages, you can see him here smashing his face into the pachinko machine and just starts obliterating everybody, which then leads down the path of just kind of, he's now a one-man army against this Yakuza gang. But it just enters this realm of complete absurdity. And it's really, really funny. The police are portrayed in a very ridiculous way. There's one of the cops, his nickname is Jeans. They have all these ridiculous names. And he takes these old people hostage at one point. And he's asking for 100 billion yen as kind of the ransom for it. So just this, it just kind of stacks on top of each other, and you get introduced to kind of all the sideline characters. He ends up kidnapping the head of the Fart family clan and writing on his forehead. But there's an introduction of one character who's kind of turns out to be kind of his nemesis throughout it. And it turns out that this guy was Bakuni Young's teacher in school here. So you can see on this spread here, Bakuni Young, unfortunately in the center spread, is in the middle, and he's got the teacher on a leash. So we get to see, and he writes Fido on his head, and just how he kind of, ever since he was a teenager, he was just completely unstoppable. So we get introduced to the teacher. His name is Hideki Shirayama, and now because he has such anger and hatred for Bakuni Young, his face is frozen in this grimace. So for the rest of the book, he just has this look on his face the entire time. But the art in here is just unbelievable because it's just so ridiculous and absurd. It's so much fun. It's such a fun book to read. It's been forever since I've read these. I got these when we lived in Ontario, so kind of early 2000s. He also has an American guy that dresses up as a ninja who's kind of his right-hand man. And he's got ninja written on his shirt, and he's always making these dramatic appearances throughout. But it is an absolute blast. The Dawn of Nippon. So there's the Fart family head of the Yakuza gang there, or whatever, that he's drawn on his head. And nobody can figure out Bakuni Young, like that he's. I keep opening to this page again, but it's just so incredible. Like this look on his face and the detail and the way that the sound effects float throughout the pages. There's a couple of instances. I think it happens here at the end. Yeah. So you're getting these sound effects that really interact with the characters. This is one of the chief of police, and it literally is drilling a hole in his head as the sound is kind of coming from Bakuni Young in this temple that he's kind of housed up in with these old people. So you're getting all of these really ridiculous imagery and taking some of those kind of manga tropes, but then just going to this ridiculous level with them. So that's book one. In book two, we get introduced to his daughter. And there's this whole thing. Yeah. So here's his daughter, Renge, I think her name is Renge. For a little while, I kept reading her name as Revenge until I looked really closely at it. And she's got kind of this kind of helper that's with her. Her father has locked her away in prison, though, because as crazy as the Fart family clan is, she's even more crazy. And it seems like she has some magic as well that she can tap into. So it just kind of takes this premise, and within the first 10 pages, you get the premise of the story, and you think it's going to be just this simple kind of gangster thing, but it just keeps adding these layers onto things. And when people get killed, there's a lot of Russian roulette that's played throughout this as well, too, for some reason. This one guy who comes in, he's kind of the specialist with it, and he's telling people that he's going to solve this crime in 24 hours. This character here, but he seems so kind of caught up in his own kind of mythology that he can't break free from analyzing his interviews on the TV to playing this Russian roulette game to everything, where he doesn't end up doing anything else until he shoots himself in the head. It's a phenomenal read. It's completely ridiculous. I can only read it in small chunks because for a whole book it becomes a little too much by the end. But it's really goddamn entertaining. So I'm a 3/4 of the way through the second volume, and then diving into the third volume. But that kind of reminded me of it. And then when you talk about Black and White, we'll talk about it a little more, because I have another book by him as well too, called Blue Spring, which is kind of a collection of short stories that he did. And I haven't read this one till early 2000s either. So this is next to read this week, because I'd like to revisit all that stuff after seeing Milan's video there. So yeah, that's one of the things I've dived into this week.
Nice.
That someone pointed out that there's manga number 5 or something like this, and the covers look pretty like Möbius would have drawn them, very Möbius-ish in a way. So that piqued my interest as well. But the first one that you've shown there, that is on my list already, for sure.
Yeah. And I mean, the thing is, I don't know. I tried to do a little bit of searching about this creator, and he started, he has quite a lot to his name, but as with everything around the world, very, very little of it is attainable. So it makes me want to try, and I haven't done it yet, just looking for this pulp sub-label. I think it was it was published by Viz. So it's kind of a side publisher of pulp. And I think the intention with the pulp stuff was it was going to be a little more of kind of this adult content, a little more of this, underground, I guess, if you want to call it that. So I'd love to dig to see what else they published, because it's not something that I've followed since then or looked into. So, I'd like to see what else came out of that.
Yeah. I guess then I talk about this one here. Since you take on Concrete, let's do our manga part here in chat. What can I tell you that I haven't told before in my video? I mean, I finished the book in the meantime.
Oh, look at that.
The art is simply amazing. I mean, that was what caught my eye when somebody showed this off in a YouTube video, and I thought, hey, this is something else. And but the main thing in the whole story, the main thing in the story is actually the relationship between these two brothers. We don't know anything. We're nothing told about their parents, their family, their circumstances, how they came into the city, how they gained their fantastic abilities to fight, because you don't want to fight against them. They are really vicious, real good fighters, and as you can see here in this portrait of one of the guys, and here and lots of smashing through windows, and this of course reminds someone a bit of Frank Miller, and one of the basics or models for Frank Miller was José Muñoz, and the Argentinian artist José Muñoz. And José Muñoz is maybe my favorite cartoonist of all time. So a manga that has these qualities of manga dynamics and the especially special cartooning of this guy Taiyo Matsumoto, who did all the book here. After reading the whole book, I have to say I obviously haven't understood. Maybe I haven't understand it, the whole chunk here, or there's a lot of stuff that can't be so easily understood. The story is in the end not really solved or cleared up what actually was going on. It's until the end about the relationship between the two kids and the policeman and the Yakuza and all the stuff. One idea that I actually found pretty interesting in the book was that the Yakuza wants to try to make Disneyland park out of the city, something like along the lines, and the Yakuza operating together with politicians and like it's pretty much the reality everywhere in the world, I guess. And this was a pretty interesting thing, but it isn't follow. The story just doesn't follow this idea until the end. It's just vanishes, or I haven't seen it in the end. It's a bit lost on me. But there are there is lots of mythological storytelling going on because one of the children is hurt and they are divided, and that has some ramifications because one of the both has hallucinations, and then there is this half mythological being here, and you wonder, is he an hallucination as well, or who is he? And something like this happens here. He splits in half, but he's well. In the next panel, he just puts himself together again. So lots of very mysterious, fairy tale-y, I can't always tale-y, like a fairy tale. So a bit. So folklore stuff is going on there, and there are sometimes they are amidst their dreams, their imagined future, and psychological stuff, and so on. And to give it a fair review or something about the story, I really have to read it again. But it's very dense, very interesting, and fascinating. And I flipped through the pages, and I was really amazed how much action there was going on. I was so impressed about the psychological stuff that I almost haven't recognized that they're constant fighting. I mean, if you like constant fighting, you can read this book for sure. But there's much more depth in it as just constant fighting.
Well, and it seems like at the time, especially with some of the Japanese movies, the ones that were getting, at least the ones that were getting kind of the most notoriety here in North America, or what I could experience, guys like Takashi Miike and stuff like that, where it was this idea of these hyper action movies. So it wasn't necessarily like the plot was really threadbare. It was really about just let's build a scene where we can have these insane things happen, and we'll just experiment. And from what I remember about that book too, they did have, the brothers seem to have a bit of a link, like a psychic link to each other from what I'm remembering. Again, it's been forever since I've read it, but you're right though, this kind of blending of this reality in with this sort of mythological and dreamlike qualities. Yeah, I mean, look at those angles. They're unbelievable. And again, it's that unusual style. It's nice to see something that isn't what we recognize as kind of the norm, I guess, for manga.
Yeah,
very cool. That's very cool.
All your mangas you guys talking about is not very available to get. It's very easy, like Ragamuffin just mentioned. It's absolutely you can't see on eBay for sure. I looked it up as well, and you can't get anywhere else. There's nothing for sale for that. Bakuna Young you did just show. And Attack on King Krita, I know it's very popular on anime, like anime part, which is very popular in there. And I looked it up on eBay as well, and I can't just, there were some trades, but of course this German version you were showing in here, yes, Attack on King Krita. So yeah,
slightly aggressive undertones there.
Yeah.
Your German book already. You don't.
Yeah. Well, Germans always print and all kinds of sorts of things. I'm talking because I know like begrudged by all of the things whatever published in English, which is not something you can always readily available for you when you wanted to get it, So.
Well, and again, it's the unfortunate thing, right? Like you can get so much kind of mainstream manga everywhere you go, but I mean, it's just it's a lot to dig into and keep in print, especially when the interest is maybe one German and one Canadian. You know what I mean? It's like, well, why are we keeping this in print for two people? But yeah, I hear that it's difficult. Ragamuffin is saying that Ping Pong and Ping Pong Sunny and Number 5 are the books in print by him currently. So,
Interesting. Okay. I'm not really. I haven't like read proper manga for a while. I'm really a fan of animations though. So anime is quite something I always get into more than actually reading. So I really enjoy those what you just talked about, the action scenes, and that page you were showing just before that foreshortening. What Japanese artists can do is absolutely amazing, and it's not an easy feat to do as an artist. I always see that kind of stuff, and you're like, oh my god, that's just perfect. Like, the balance of your, like doing this and then drawing like me is like, it's a different
he
kind
has
of
a
thing.
lot of these fisheye perspectives, where you have not only this foreshortening, but everything is a bit askew and
Very
so
popular.
That's very interesting.
Yeah,
And
especially
it seems out of his hand. It doesn't look like he photographed it or something like this, but just constructed it on the page, which is really fascinating.
Yeah, no, definitely. As much as that foreshortening, there's a style. It is stylized as well too. Just kind of looking through as well and seeing even a panel like this, again, where it's like you're saying that it sort of has that fisheye perspective as well. Yeah, cool. Rasa, what do you got?
I have a book, but I don't have how to show it because I read it digitally, and my kid decided to take away my tablet because he's very tantrumy today. I guess he wants all attention after Daddy had too much attention from everybody else. He didn't like that. So anyway, so the comic book I wanted to show is The Last Flight Out. However, I can try share, but I have not tried. Share screen. Okay, wait. Mute. Oh my god, no way. Okay. I don't know how can wait.
I
Can
see
you
something
show
here. I'll add it to the
can
stream.
Can you see that?
Oh.
I
Psychedelic effects.
No, you can't. Oh shit. I don't even know. No, I can see your screen and it's like it doesn't show. Oh, I know why. Oh my god. Okay, maybe we should.
I'll remove and you can try again.
Yeah. It's because you have to see when you share something, you have to share a specific page, which I wasn't aware of that. Stop that. Go share again. Oh my goodness, this is too complicated.
Yeah, Damien makes it look easy.
Yeah, but then I want. Nah, I don't think I can do it, to be honest. So no, I'll stop. So I don't, because it's another page and in another program, and I don't know how to find that on that stop the sharing thing. Anyway, so I'll talk some things. Forget about it then. Let's talk about actual comic, which I can actually show. So I guess my week is inspired by quite DC stuff. So I decided to go into Doom Patrol realm, especially the earlier stuff, not the ones we know. So this one is Doom Patrol 87, and is published 1960 something, 64. And it's a fantastic story of terrible secret of Negative Man. So this is the Negative Man in here. He's with the bandage. His name is Larry. If people are aware, and he has this secret, terrible secret. Of course, it goes out of proportion because it's this comic books on this era, but it's absolutely fantastic story. So we start the story from like a plane in trouble, and apparently there is this actress from France who's flying over, and she has plane problems, and suddenly Doom Patrol appears, and they come to help her. And we have this Elastic Girl or Elastic Woman, Rita Farr, who can maximize herself to become a giant or minuscule. And it's funny because I was looking up, because it kind of reminds you of like Ant-Man, like how he can become a giant man. And I was looking to see where her first appearance, and it was her appearance on 1964. And Ant-Man's first appearance, I don't know if I don't know when Giant Man's first appearance is. And I wonder if it's somebody like they kind of share the same kind of ideas, or stealing the same ideas, because this is a great in here panel where she catches the plane in distraught. So she becomes such a giant that she can actually catch the plane. So plane gets saved, and of course there is a secret plan. Because they want to get the Negative Man to do their bidding. And of course we're talking about Brotherhood of Evil, who's behind all the scheme and wanted to use one of the Doom Patrol to basically steal quite a few, which he actually does. still quite a few inventions for their own bad bidding. Of course, we have Rita, who is very jealous of this blonde chick, and she doesn't like that other females gets involved with her teammates as well, which is very entertaining, to be honest. It's very for the era of comic book, it was actually really interesting to read after a while. Maybe not touching anything whatever DC has published from that era, especially in the 60s. But I absolutely thoroughly enjoyed it because they have this, by getting Negative Man to steal this special technology, what they're able to do is take a robot, like a toy tanks, and making them real, like big giants, so make them almost real. They take the toy soldiers for their own bidding. So the whole idea of doing this is another example how they did it. They have this toy soldiers are dropping in, and this machine expands them into becoming a soldiers for their own, which is example here, they marching forwards. So the whole idea was to actually rob the Federal Reserve, because it's of course impenetrable. But our Doom Patrol characters had always thought about it. They just wanted to go along with this idea and basically catch them in the act. But of course, because of Rita's Elastic Woman's jealousy, everything goes not really the way in how Doom Patrol wanted to do. And Negative Man had to disclose the secret. And I need to show you what his secret is, which I can't. Oh, there you go. This is the page. So his secret is that because he's these special bandages, he is looking crazy, and he has radiation, like he can poison radiation. And by little bandages, he's able to be next to the humans without infecting them, which is kind of fantastic when you're reading the comic book from 1960. And then the best is she gets in trouble, the Rita, and they, of course, the people found out. They captured her, and she says, "Oh, did I pull a boner?" Because she gets captured. That's the mention. So there you go. There's a first boner mention in the comic book in 1963 or 64. So I thought, I can see her boners everywhere now. Because of you guys. Even in comic books, I find I crack up, of course, because it's like the way they were speaking against, they were using that. But in these days, if you say that as a girl, that would be interesting, especially people surrounding her and stuff like that. Also, there's an extra story about our Machine Man, which was he goes into this island where World War II happened to find this fugitive, and in order to find the fugitive, the Machine Man used every single part of his limb to, of course, win against the foe. And the way he captures him is by lying on him, because he's extra heavy, which is fantastic. This story is actually really entertaining. I know why kind of like I always wanted to get the Doom Patrol, the earlier stuff. This is like real little gem. It just has those, like the era where, like it's just beautiful to read, and it's not as heavy, like text-wise. I mean, there's lots of speech bubbles, but honestly, it's the way it's written is really kind of flown really well, and I guess because I really enjoyed it, it made it even more entertaining. So really good. Absolutely fantastic. And I'm gonna hopefully, as I say, I kind of like to read random stuff, so I could just pick up something, and I just felt like Doom Patrol. I guess I've seen something mention of that, like just hint, and your head suddenly plays a little part in that. So I start reading that, and really enjoy it, and highly recommend for people to know those characters.
Sorry, I didn't catch it. Who drew it?
Oh, those. It doesn't really say. Bruno Premiani.
Yeah. Okay, that's the standard artist for that series. He's great.
Yeah,
very Michael Allred-ish.
Yeah, he is the one who has basically drew it from the first appearance of Doom Patrol characters as well. And I think it's Arnold Drake who is creator of, for example, this Rita girl, Rita Farr. It's Elemental girl. So it seems to be. I was looking some of the first appearances, and all the time seems to be Bruno was part of it. And it's died in 1984. He was born 1907. Just a fact. Somehow I know that just because by Glinsim I remember the dates. So yeah, Bruno.
Rita is our favorite character in the show. Like, we haven't watched all of the second season yet, but the actress who plays Rita in the TV show, like, she really makes that character so enjoyable to watch.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole show is really, really great, we think anyway. But every time I see I see them every once in a while, not that often when I'm out digging those old Doom Patrols. I'm always tempted to pick up one or two because they do look like a lot of fun. They look really good.
It's really good. Also, the way she got her powers is by filming in Africa, and she inhaled the volcanic gases, and then she realized suddenly that she can expand and shrink herself to minuscule. That's what it got me idea, like, who's came up with that idea first? Because I don't know, as I say, I know the first appearance of Ant-Man is 1963, which is before her, but then I don't know what the Giant Man first appearance, because it's a kind of different power he gained Ant-Man afterwards in the comic book. So I wonder if Marvel has just like took the idea, or is it they took the idea? You know, in those days, I guess everybody copies each other. So I wonder if in that time they were doing the same thing. So it's just a nice snippet as a comic book collector to find out. Would be nice if Sleep Reader would mention, maybe he would know, but yeah.
There was a competition almost. I guess Doom Patrol was a bit earlier, but somehow, we can't stop it.
It's a beautiful, I don't know, you know, so people was talking about that era. DC wasn't really great to read, kind of childish. It's very easy reading story. It's nothing it's not going to blow your mind off, but it's so entertaining the way the conversation happens. Like that girl just says, "Oh, did I pull a boner?" It's like, you don't happen. It doesn't really happen often anymore. I mean, you have to go X-rated comic books to read that kind of stuff. So
my favorite episodes are with the gorilla. When he goes around with the Kinderwagen, and it's totally bonkers. He's the mastermind of the Brotherhood of Evil at one place in the story. And
in here, the mastermind behind all of this is called the Brain, which you never see. The only thing you see in this comic book, he appears via radio conversation, and that gorilla you were talking about actually appears in this comic book because he is there to do his bidding with the machines and stuff like that. He's there and then doing all the stuff. So he's like, yes, look, I show you this great machine, and they take this toy tank and it makes it ginormous, and you know, it's this secret plan they have. And this is definitely one of the fantastic things about Doom Patrol, and you know, like you get to know what actually they were, because there only were 3 of them. So Metal Man, Elastic Girl or Woman, and then you have that Larry guy, Negative Man. And then, of course, the brain of them all is called the Chief, the guy in a wheelchair. So he is the one who's basically helping them, and he comes up with these great ideas. And it's just like the silly idea of the bandages. He bandages himself up, and no radioactivity comes through because I put a couple of like special. It says like special bandages I put through, so nobody is gonna get infected by him. It's just a beauty of the comic books in that era, you know, like simplest idea, and it's like he's carrying his television so they can communicate, you know. It's like, you know, those ideas come through. It's just beautiful to read. So yep.
Very cool. That's very cool. I'm gonna jump into this one, I guess. So again, it is officially the Let's Honor Earl Grey week this week, because I did get the city of Belgium. Am I going all jittery on your side?
Yeah.
There it goes. I think it's stabilized now. The colors on this. Yeah, see, look at that.
Oh, it doesn't like the colors. Your camera is like, nope.
Wow, that's insane.
Too much color.
Yeah. You should go black and white, baby.
So I picked it up. I ordered it in, and it came in. And man, I really loved this book. This is the first by Brecht Evans that I've read. I know the name, I've seen the stuff around before, but I've never given it a shot. This was a phenomenal book to kind of read through. And I mean, the story itself was great as well. There was moments that I really loved, but honestly, just reading through each of these pages was such a joy. It was just laid out beautifully, and like you were saying in your video, these kind of nice touches that he would do to kind of illustrate things. Again, some of the things that you can only do in comics, to give this feeling of kind of the mood, or the when he stops, you know, the example that you used in yours is when he stops listening to the woman and she just kind of turns into text. But I would say even this stuff here, just showing, you know, the monotony of what he's doing, and kind of he's uncomfortable and his head is always down and he just keeps lighting another cigarette. And then we get into a page like this where it just starts to sort of blend into one. It's really, really great stuff. The only mild criticism I would have is I wasn't as crazy about the ending. Oh, look at that. Hey, it just wants to jump around on that. I wasn't as crazy about the ending. In my mind, it was one of those things that when he's swimming off into the sunset, I could have seen that as kind of like the fade out, where it was like, there you go. Because I mean, I like the fact that some of the stories are sort of unresolved. You don't generally, I mean, you can infer a lot from the ending of each character's story. But when he started to spell it out a little bit more, it sort of lost me. Not that it was horrible. And I don't want to say that this is a harsh criticism, because it doesn't affect the overall thought for me of the book. But again, I just found myself really just poring over the pages and just checking out the details and looking at the way the movement was with the characters throughout the page. And I love the panel-less borders, and even stuff like this as they're having a conversation about which bar they're going to go to. And instead of just showing the cards, just showing their speech kind of weaving throughout the 2-page spread, like really clever stuff. I watched a very, very brief video just as he was kind of promoting this book. And he was talking a little bit about his process being kind of watered down inks and gouache and that sort of thing. And it shows him start on a cityscape. And man, oh man, this Grimace purple character here, he has this moment where it becomes intense. It had a really nice effect, because it got me. It was like, oh shit, here's where things start to go south. So it was a real nice kind of weave and dodge. Hello, Hex Pillar, how are you? It was really, really well done. I mean, I'm going to be on the lookout for more of his stuff for sure. I don't want to show too much near the end there. Let's go backwards here. Don't want to give much of anything away. But when this character kind of finds himself again and kind of unleashes his kind of who he used to be, I guess is the impression that I get. His story is pretty interesting too. But I mean, it's pages like this. If my camera shows it, yeah, no, it won't even show it. That's amazing. That I love this perspective where you're looking head on in some areas, you're looking down in some areas. Yeah, really imaginative stuff. I don't think I've ever really seen anything like it. So this was a fantastic book. I'm really glad you put this on my radar. I'd seen the cover around. People locally, a couple of the comic shops had talked about it and shown a picture of it. And the cover image struck me right away. And again, it's drawn in quarterly out of Montreal. So, you know, on par with Fantagraphics as far as just the quality of the hardcover. And I'm so glad it doesn't have a dust jacket on it. Yeah. I'm so glad that it's just the book itself. It's gorgeous. So I appreciate the recommend on that one, because I love it. Really, really love it.
And actually, in my video, this was so random which pages I've shown. I just flipped in my mind. I just opened the book somewhere and talked about what I see, because right now when I'm flipping through the book, there are some pages that it's like I haven't seen them before, because there's so much going on each and every page of the book. And something that I really passed, I have to show this one here. This just went by reading. Someone, I guess it was the referent who has shown it, or somewhere else. This is an amalgamation or a combination of two influences. For one, it's Franz Mazarel, who did woodcuts of cities, and he's a Belgian as well. So this figures to Brecht Evans. And this guy here on above here is one other artist that I'm very familiar with, Caspar David Friedrich. And he has this, if you Google Caspar David Friedrich, you see a man looking into the sky, and it's always contemplating, his characters are always contemplating about the jenseits, the death and eternity and so on. Anyhow, it's just a great scene, a great example of what's going on. And if you want to see more of Brecht Evans' work, there is some exhibition in Basel, somewhere in Switzerland, and you can see this on YouTube, and you see the huge paintings of him that he's actually done for the book. And he has, it's an insane work that he has done there. And I've mentioned it, I guess, in my video, that he, with Panther, one of his older books, that he really got insane, that he really had psychological problems before or even after finishing the book. So it's somehow understandable because he's so all in to the stuff he creates there. Yeah, and I really love it, like it. Yeah,
right. Well, and the way that he portrays like the night scape, you know what I mean, like the city at night. Again, it just feels like there's stuff that's happening there that's like, I can't believe how long have we had comics for, and it feels like, wow, there's still somebody that can bring something new to, like, new in quotes, because obviously, like you're saying, there's a lot of references to other artists and these kind of things, but it just still creates this unique experience that I think he captures just incredibly well.
Yeah.
Beauty. Yeah, no, it's beauty. So Panther is the one you'd recommend next, eh?
No, not really.
Okay.
Panther is the book with, I mean, it's about child abuse, right on, and so yeah, it's this girl that plays always with her imaginary friend, and you see that he always changes shapes, and he's maybe not so imaginary, or I mean, so in her room, but there's something. What I haven't recognized, the Panther is more yellowish and has yellow tones. And someone pointed it out that there's some part of the house that has this yellow zone. So he plays and uses color for his storytelling, not just in terms of the light, the speech, the text that the people are speaking. No, my second favorite of him is The Making of, also published by Drawn and Quarterly, and really it's my second favorite. I mean, The City of Belgium, I guess it's hard to make it better than that, but you can see where he came from. This is a bit City of Belgium in the making. The story within here is a bit more close to my heart. I don't want to promise too much, because his comics are observations, and the stories are observations and little snippets, and the ends are always a bit open somehow. And I think that is just the way he tells the stories. But what I really do like about The Making of is that it is about a small circle of artists who try to make some kind of art exhibition somewhere in the country. And there's this urge, this project to do art in capital letters, but you don't reach the level that you imagine in your head, not really. And it's more, watercolor paintings of some flowers here and some nice things there. And in the end, it's just we come together, talk together. The men try to get some women and vice versa, maybe, and have a good time. So, and that's it. And the story sounds familiar to me, and I could relate to that story. But yeah,
no, that's very cool. Very cool. I'll keep my eyes open for that one. And it also reminds me that I need to, Drawn and Quarterly was kind of in my life for a period for quite a bit, and then it kind of disappeared. So it's a nice reminder that, hey, there is this Canadian publisher that should probably have a little closer look at, like what else have I missed out in these past few years, right? Because you just get focused in other areas, right? So, cool, very cool. What do you got for us next there, Mr. Gray?
Okay, maybe stay with the manga theme. This one here talked about this. Yeah, Junji Ito's No Longer Human. Oh, it's very wide.
Manga people.
No, I'm not really a manga. But I somehow I can't help it because it's really new, something new and exciting. Even though I can't say this really about Junji Ito, having read some books by him right now. Anyhow, this book here is really fascinating, and even you, I guess, there's a lot of new stuff for people who think they have read Junji Ito enough to know about his storytelling tricks and so on, because this bases on a novel by Osamu Dazai, who seems to be a pretty famous Japanese writer. And I haven't gone there in my video, not to spoil too much stuff, but maybe this is okay here for you, because this is really what makes the stuff interesting. I thought in the middle of the book that Junji Ito can stop now because it's too brutal, too horrific. And our main character, that's this guy here, he's a good-looking young man, and the women fall for him, and he's not good. He's very bad luck for them. So each relationship he has with a woman ends with suicide by the woman, or a disaster of some kind. And this happens again and again in the whole book. So I thought, Junji Ito doing once again a horror above all borders, or maximizing the stuff. But when you read the biography of this novelist here, Osamu Dazai, it's exactly what his life was. His life was a total disaster, and starting with this father figure here that oppressed him in many ways, and and what I could really relate to was this total disconnection between our main character here and obviously this writer, this author, this Japanese author, as well, with society, with humanity, so that he really doesn't know how to talk with people and with, my younger son is an autist, so I can really relate to that. And in the end, the cartoonist, or no, Osamu, he became later on a cartoonist, a mangaka. So it's maybe sort of a self-portrait of Junji Ito in a slight way, but he meets the Japanese novelist. So the character that always represented this novelist throughout the story meets Osamu Dazai in the end. So there are two characters, and one commits suicide in the end, and the other is just in a horrific frozen state, almost paralyzed, with his last wife who puts revenge on him. So that's meaning full spoilers. And anyhow, but it has really a frame narration, and everything comes to its place in the end. Something that I couldn't say from Uzumaki. Is his most famous story, for an instance, because Uzumaki was really it was repetitious in the end, and you could imagine he could go on with this shtick forever, even though I liked Uzumaki. Shtick.
Yeah. Just like the spiral, right? Yeah, just going on.
The spiral, and everything is spiral, and So, and this year is really, each and every page of this book here has its purpose and his importance for the whole story, and that really got me in a way. And I found out about this Uzumaki guy. He had this Osamu Dazai writer. He had a daughter, I guess it was a daughter called Tomi. And Tomi is the title character of another Junji Ito book. And so I really think that he was very influenced by this author. And the whole book is a suicide note. This No Longer Human was published after he committed suicide, this writer. And it was perceived in by the audience as a suicide note of book length. And
wow,
subject. He doesn't pull punches with the subjects, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, you have to decide for yourself if you want to read this book. I was a bit surprised in the end how I was looking for a light, funny body horror book with with body parts in it floating around, and this is more the kind of intense horror, actually. Even though,
Have you guys read his Shiva? I guess is another thing he did.
Yeah, I have.
And how is it as dark as everything else Junji Ito has done, or is this just his theme?
I mean, you can take stuff lightly, but when I see people with holes in their body, just for instance, you can look into the holes. Yeah, that's nothing.
Is that what really, it's all about?
Yeah, I can read about zombies all day long, but this is stuff. And by the way, we looked for this story here. I don't know when, 3 weeks ago. The Enigma of Amigara Fault. That was the book or the short story in which the characters vanish in the mountain.
That's right. Yeah, this is the one.
And you have these and
holes.
That's more Junji Ito, like I know him, having a very precise and yet horrific idea. In a way with a psychological twist, of course, and going with this idea and building a story around this idea in spirals or not.
It's becoming a feature for many people. It seems to be Junji Ito is doing it in this part. Like, I guess a lot of people are reading Junji Ito stuff. It's like everywhere. If you want to just type in Junji Ito on YouTube, I guess you will find lots. People talking about.
And it feeds more to the Western sensibilities. He doesn't has these huge eyes, these over-exaggerated emotions, and which many manga fans like it, and I guess it's part of manga, but he just skips that, or it's one part of the manga. They're divided into different. I don't. I don't want to start to explain manga because Terence,
Good luck with that.
So right, because we don't know the first thing about manga, but I enjoy really the stuff here.
I'm still debating if I want to get into Junji Ito at all, because you guys keep on, of course, mentioning, and you get that infectious feeling like you have to maybe attempt. There's one thing, as I said to you probably earlier, or that I can do horror comic books. It seems to be fine, but Junji Ito seems to be touching the subjects. I'm like, I just can't stop grimacing, and it's like like now another example you just show again, another Junji Ito comic book seems to be like. I like this is how nicely printed because mangas usually you have those tiny little trays and there's like section walls of them. But it seems to be Junji Ito books gets really nice hardcovers and stuff like that, which is kind of appealing to actually just because it has like a nice short, like small format still, but seems to be really kind of like appealing to the eye until you turn the page. I remember I was in library just recently and there was one of the books, I don't remember the name, I think it was a spiral because I turned this and I was like, I looked at the page, I was like, oh no, I don't think I want to digest that for a while. It seems to be that it has that other feel to it because as I say, it looks appealing. Like the more you talk about it, the more I just kind of think about maybe I should just dwell into. And I was thinking maybe Umazaki because it's so popular everywhere, so maybe I dwell in that first, but I'm still kind of like, I don't know if I should go that route or not.
My son is a fan, and my son has a bunch of the books. But honestly, like, it's the one time where it's even just hearing about that story. It seems even for myself, it's like, man, it's pretty dark. You know what I mean? Like, it makes me uncomfortable even hearing about it. And then again, it was like the experience that when we all read Monster, they're talking about that and being in that mindset as a creator for those extended periods of time, but then also as a reader, it still has that effect to some degree, right? Like again, that magical element that happens, you're in this world now, and they've portrayed it so well that you feel those emotions coming through the page. It's like, because even that one sounds a little intense for me, you know what I mean? Like it sounds fairly dark, but again, that's what he excels at. He excels at that kind of darkness. And I would say, honestly, out of the stuff that I'm familiar with, either hearing or the little bits that I've read, Uzumaki is definitely on the more tamer side of things. That's the more it's tamer than some of this other stuff, in my impression anyway. And again, like I haven't read all of it, so
one thing about No Longer Human. I mean, since the original novel is set, I don't know, 60, 70 years ago or so, and the role of the women in the story is very old-fashioned, just as a warning. So, and especially for our sensibilities. So, and this is really hard to bear sometimes, even for me, who is usually not concerned about these kind of stuff too much. I take it into context usually. But since all these poor women are really, they're dead in the end. And when I read the biography of that guy, they were dead for real. And so, I mean, this can maybe hinder your enjoyment of this book a bit, I imagine.
Yeah, I tend not to go to the very much of the suicidal part note of the books in generally. I'm too sensitive to that sense because it plays in my mind quite significantly because I've been through depression a couple of times and that part of suicidal, it was one of the times. So I tend not to go that way because the helper who is basically talk to you about that kind of like they always tell you be in a happy place in your head because you don't want to trigger. So I don't tend to go that route. Like even remember you were talking about that beautiful flying booby girl, the first book I was reading, the first issue. That's what kind of triggered to me, and I couldn't read anymore because I knew where my headspace was going, and it was like, oh, okay, this is the lamb bells. Thankfully, I do understand them now more. After a while, it takes time to learn this kind of things. But brain is a funny little organ. Which you depend on a lot, but it does have triggers, and it's kind of plays in my mind in that sense. So,
and especially as you get older too, right? Like it gets,
the development.
I think you become like everything.
Yeah, it's about understanding who you are. It's, I think,
Right.
very my major key in that sense as well. And it's, of course, if you go through that kind of things, like depression is not something easy to get away from it. Unfortunately, you can continue living in that, but you just have to find the right space and mind to be at every single time, you know, you go through it. So that's, I say, it's fascinating. Honestly, it's fascinating. Even you just describing, showing a couple of pages, it's fascinating to me. But as me, who I am, it's just those triggers I need to be tentative to that kind of stuff, because you never know what my brain's gonna decide next time. So it's kind of thing you have to go be aware of. And like,
totally.
it's my turn, isn't it? Yeah. So to make
is,
so to make my happy self, I decided that I need to reread something. And because we were mentioning him maybe in the comic section, I don't know, in the comment section last video, but I'm talking about this. I needed some happiness in my life, and I wanted to see once again.
Oh, sweet. Yeah.
Darwin Cook's creation. I don't have many, one of the things I really need to go and start doing is get his Parker things. But I wanted to reread this because actually, after I haven't even read all the way through yet. I'm taking a lot of time to do so, because I wanted to enjoy it as much as I can. And after even reading the first story, which comes Analog Heroes, Chapter 1, and Pacific 1945, as you can see here, it's absolutely fantastic. It seems like I've never read the story before, and it's just the way it's being brought up. It's so fantastically told, simple, but that simplistic art, you would think, it just goes so well. And this deluxe edition, I'm thankfully to say, it's really nice. One of the nicest things in the new of what they published from Darwin Cook, even though I would like to have that one with a slipcase, of course. But this was, thankfully, I managed to get hold of this one. Even this one is going for quite a few bucks now, because it's been reprinted in trade format, I think, as well. But this little story of these losers who goes into the to help to find the scientist, and they get into this island, and of course they see this creature, and that it really wasn't very entertaining. I mean, talking about subject wise, because all of them really have died because of whatever happens, and that little junior of the team who had died first was really kind of like shocking even. And that's the beauty of Darwin Cook, that the emotions he's able to portray, not only the happy stuff we see from him, but he's really I don't know, that's why it's such a sad not having him anymore, to be honest. And of course, one of the famous I think Joe Kubert is the first one who has done it, and I think Darwin Cook has done it again, because I think it's one of the famous covers done by Joe Kubert. But the scenes
Kubert did a lot of the loser stuff as well.
Yeah.
So
the scenes we have in this book is just so nice to look and read through. So this was as I say, really kind of like this scene in here, when the guy just decides, you know what, I'm still gonna do it. I'm gonna go join them all, and he decides by taking revenge on his beast. He takes 2 grenades and jumps inside the throat of a Rex. It's just fantastic to look at the way he's portrayed these things, and especially this scene afterwards. And here it's kind of sad, but it's really nicely kind of done. I don't know. I just really enjoy this. And then, of course, we have another story of the beginning of another story, how Jesse had been dismantled by the government, because they were getting the law where they have to tell them who they are, or tell their identities, and how heroes basically or hid themselves, or were doing, or didn't agree with the government, and they decided to basically retire. And this is where, like every scene, honestly, it's just so well done, and it's just like so nice to go back and look at it. And then Lois Lane really nicely represented in this story as well. So I honestly, as I say, I read until chapter 4, and it's just I'm continuously going through slowly, but it's just a quick reminder of why I really enjoy Darwin Cook once again. I mean, whoever not have even seen this book or not explored him, please, you can check it out, and I think you would guys enjoy it. So really good. Fantastic and nice Green Lantern story coming up, which I, of course,
Yeah.
I'm one of my fans. And then actually in here you have introduction to Hal. As a child, he was a fan, and actually really felt like, honestly, this story felt like there's a Star Trek movie. I'm a Star Trek fan. And in one of the movies, you have kind of very similar introduction to. I'm not going to show the pages, so you can shrink me down. One of the stories in Star Trek movie was like how our main young Kirk, came through to this bar to meet somebody who he's been admiring. It's kind of like reminding me of that scenes in here, how he introduced the Hal Jordan to who he's going to be in the future. So really good. Such a fantastic thing to have. I'm so happy I'm owning it. And going back.
It was the first Absolute edition I bought. I don't own very many, but that was the one. Like I had the graphic novels, and then finally I just sprung for the Absolute edition, and it's one that I pull off the shelf a couple of times a year, 2, 3, 4 times a year, and I just sit and flip through it. It's such a phenomenal story, like taking that nostalgia to like the next step of here's what it is, and just knowing what little bit I know about Darwin Cook as well, to kind of, the stereotypical kind of man's man. You're going to sit, you're going to drink with him, and he's going to tell you some stories. Like all of it is good. I can see the new context that's with it now that we have this kind of proliferation of these fucking knuckleheads, Comics Gate, and they kind of claimed him as one of their own, and his wife just kind of got on them and said, my husband didn't believe anything you fucking knuckleheads stood for. Like, don't associate his name with your bullshit whatsoever. But you can see where they would get that from, that, right? Because he's talking about this time period, and it's just, that's the stuff that he loved. He was telling a story about the stuff he loved and what resonated with him, and this idea of heroes. And it's just really, it's such an uplifting kind of positive kind of story. You know what I mean? It's so good. I would love to get the single issues. I never see them out of all of the comics that I see out there when I'm digging. I never see the single issues. I would love to flip through those just to kind of enjoy it in a different way as well, too. You know what I mean? On that paper and seeing it in that size.
Also,
but it's such a good book.
Surprised to how drawn. Even I read all this before. I remember, sometimes you don't have attention. I read through. It's actually really good information in here. It gives you a really big insight about the characters as well. And I was like, I remember reading it before. Maybe I was not trying to read it faster now, but when you take your really time and involve yourself in the book, and that's why they put those pages in it on purpose, it just enhances the story so much better, because you get just more insight about the characters, who they were. They talk about that owl man, how he died because he was chased and he plummeted down from the buildings, and they found out that he's this rich guy called Rex. He had so much money, but he decided to do his own bidding, becoming a superhero, which is fantastic. As I say, is really beautiful way of introducing the characters. And I do understand, like, I always been on the lookout for single issues, and every single time I look, I only have number issue, I think 1, and I never find the rest of it. It's just I want to have it. That's one of the things. Even though I have this deluxe edition hardcover, I still want to have them in singles, because singles is different kind of experience once again, in different way of looking at it. So yeah, very good.
Yeah, no, it's very cool. I mean, it's that book that got me into wanting to read The Losers after reading that, and that's the opening to the story. It's like, I got to find out what these losers are about, and I started picking up those comics, and you know what I mean? Like, yeah, he was a hell of a creator, man. Really great guy. Seems to be a really great guy. So the next one for me was a bit of an unusual read. Let me see. My computer is freezing up a tiny bit here, so hopefully, if I do disappear all of a sudden, I will be back. So I read Mila Manara, The Great Adventure, which is the first book, I guess, in a kind of a longer series with these two characters, HP and Giuseppe Bergman. I think did it go up even into the 2000s, I believe? I don't remember how many different stories there were, but from what I understand, this is the first one. It took me a little bit to get into it. I didn't, and there wasn't much online, because sometimes when I feel like I'm really lost, I feel like there's something that I'm missing, I'll do a quick search online just to see what the reviews are, if there's someone that's written about it. I couldn't find too much in my very, very slight digging online. But yeah, it doesn't like black and white either. Screw you, Canada. So there was a couple of things that stood out to me. It's funny that I turned to this page. We'll see stuff like this. There was parts in this story where I was really reminded of like Jim Woodring when he puts himself into his comics and he starts engaging with his surroundings and going on these adventures. There's a real breakdown of the fourth wall here. There's oftentimes where Giuseppe Bergman is talking to us as comic readers. And I mean, once that hit me about, I don't know, maybe about halfway through the book, it put a lot of other things into perspective. When you first open the book and you're introduced to him, he starts talking about this. He wants to go on a great adventure and now he can't stay around and that's it. And I've got to go and I've got to experience this thing, and starts talking about, it's almost like as a reader, you've invaded their space. So now you've opened the book. Now it's my fault that he's going on, not fault, but it's because of me that he has to go on this adventure, and he goes to see a producer. So it's this whole idea of presenting the story, and there's a lot here, and it's a lot of kind of like, this is an escapist fantasy for people that are just working men generally, because, you know, there's nudity in this and stuff too, and there's kind of commentary on that sort of thing, where it really feels like if I didn't read this, if I didn't open this book, they'd be just content within their world, right? But because I have, he now has to find this adventure, and there's a lot of half starts where it doesn't go anywhere, where it starts to gain some traction. It's a fascinating read. I found myself really enjoying it. There was absolutely things here that didn't, that completely passed me over. There was references to a poet who committed suicide. He has a dream sequence actually, and he sees him in this dream sequence. Anyway, I won't be able to find it, but so there was a couple of references to things like that 100% went over my head. So I know that there's part of this that I'm missing out on, but there's just such this side here. There's really nice use of pages here and panel layouts. He's drowning at one point, but the way they portray the hand coming through the water, kind of on an angle, and it just really. So the whole thing has this kind of Woodring dream imagery to it. And when he starts to get his ground, he comes across, yeah, here we go. Here's the poet here who committed suicide. And even the poet talks to us at one point, says, I didn't shoot myself in the head. I shot myself in the heart. So there's this kind of constant talking to us as the reader, as he's kind of telling his version of the story. But he discovers this tribe and ends up living with them. And he wants to tell them his name and introduce, and he gets kind of reprimanded from the chief saying, don't ever share your name. If you share your name, you're going to lose your powers and stuff like this. So he says, we saw you talking to a dog. So in our language, one who talks to dogs is called Bergman. And so he calls him Bergman anyway. So it was all these kind of, I don't know, man. It was an unusual read. It was good. I don't know if it's kind of blown me away. I found myself just puzzled, but you really do feel like, again, you're being led by the hand throughout this story. And I really enjoyed the idea of me as a reader being part of the story. I know that there's been books where they'll try, or comics and stuff where they'll try that sort of thing and kind of talk to you as the reader at certain points. I think of Doom Patrol, for example, like you were talking about before, the Grant Morrison kind of introducing himself into the book, so it breaks that wall. But I don't think I've ever had an experience like this where I just really felt like a part of it, that it was, all of this was because of me, and look at you, this kind of, you're just begging for this adventure because you got nothing else going on in your life. So you're trying to escape through this escapist art here, and we're going to try to present you with something, but it's always going to fall flat because you don't really deserve this sort of thing, right? So it was unique, a very, very unique read. I definitely keep my eyes open for more. Like I said, there was a number of stories with these two characters in, so I'm curious. Are you familiar with this one, Earl Grey? Milan?
Sort of.
Yep.
I have a different relationship with Milo Minara. Um, in a way, I prefer these books that like the one that you've shown, where it's more a road movie through psychic realms in a way, and he doesn't only rely on the beauty of his female characters. So. I really think that is such a one note stuff, even though it's a beautiful note, but always the same. And yeah, I really like these, especially when his panels grew little smaller and smaller, and he makes crazy stuff with us readers. I can't really imagine. I remembered some of the pages, and I wondered where it is right now. I can't pull it off my magic shelf here, but I wanted to show you some other book by him. In the case you haven't seen it, the Ape King has to be the English title, and this is written by one Silverio Pisu, and is a retelling of a Chinese legend. Oh, bonus. And it is, I guess, Milo Manara pretty early on, I guess, but at his craziest, especially in the black and white style. This is just a random page. It goes through the whole book here. The graphics and the art is breathtaking. It goes about this ape king is actually some kind of hippie and lives some. Okay, yeah, we have Manara tropes for sure here, but yeah. So, okay, your question was actually something different. This Bergman stories, I can't tell you too much, obviously, about them. But I have to read.
Ape, I've got the ape, and it'll be the next one that I read now. It's been sitting on my shelf downstairs forever, but I just haven't dug into it. But I'll absolutely make that one happen next. So just talking about the small panels just reminded me of this page here.
Yeah.
So here's the poet, this Mayakovsky, committing suicide, and then
I never have seen this particular page. I'm pretty sure it's this.
Ooh.
Oh,
you guys are you and your suicide notes, eh?
Sorry. Yeah, but the thing is, it's portrayed in a different way here. It's not bleak or dark whatsoever. It's more kind of, again, it sort of reminds me more of kind of the way like a Jodorowsky and those crew would use these kind of imageries. It's more like this dreamscape. It doesn't have that horrific element in it. It has that, yeah, it just has a different feel to it. I didn't read this as dark whatsoever, because I mean, the other thing is then you're seeing panels like those where this samurai is eating his head and his neck is extended. So it's hard to pair like imagery like this and imagery like this and think that it's anything dark and serious, right? It becomes this kind of otherworldly, what the hell are you trying to get across here? And this real journey that this guy is going on, like you were saying, this kind of psychic journey, the psychological journey.
He did a comic or graphic novel together with Federico Fellini. And I think if you ever have seen, for sure you have seen something by Fellini. And there's lots of similarities in terms of playing with the viewer, I guess, in a way. Okay. And this Baroque stuff just trying out everything, and if it doesn't fit on the page, we make the panels a bit smaller and intricate.
Well, and the usual, what it does is just changes the flow too, right? Like all of a sudden you're reading at a certain pace and the pace changes, and it's nice seeing stuff like that too, because then you can just pull back and see like a nice layout, all of those shapes and everything just sit nicely on the page. It's stuff like this that, as confusing as sometimes it is going in, because the first thing I always think about, it's like, oh no, this is 100% me. I don't understand what he's trying to do here. And that's not always the case. Some of these creators, they're just falling flat on their face. They may be, but I mean, a guy like Manara, it's like, no, there's more of a chance that he's trying something specific that I'm just not tapped into. Potentially.
Yeah, maybe it's just a play with himself.
Absolutely, yeah.
And maybe very open, I guess.
Does he write his own stuff, or does he do the job like he has this like writers like subjects?
This
like
one he wrote himself, but I think he works with other people as well too.
Okay.
But yeah, this one it was him doing everything.
And what I mean, the most famous work of him, like the most recognizable work of Milo Manara is. Do you guys know?
It's a good question. I don't know.
I guess he's most famous for his more porn stuff.
Right,
which is what you guys really do.
Out of control or something like this. Here,
right.
I have here. This is the third part, actually, of this Bergman series, and maybe this is a continuation of the stuff that you've shown. I just found here we have himself, the man himself there. Yeah.
Oh,
so,
I see. So.
And stuff like this here.
Okay, cool.
I mean, it's. I think it's very playful and experimental. So and always like this.
So if you
I don't believe that there's a master plan.
So
Sorry?
if you have a newbie who wants to get into Milo Manara, so what's the first thing you would give him to?
Milo Manara wouldn't be my recommendation for a newbie. Usually.
Oh, that's the
maybe
list.
the ape.
Yeah,
for sure. The ape is not about the story, but about butterscotch. Okay. Indian Summer. Yeah, Indian Summer is pretty nice as well, even though
I think Indian Summer was probably the first thing that I read of his, fully knowing that this was a Manara thing, right? Butterscotch I've seen before. It's more like, the Eros Comics line of Fantagraphics. I haven't read too much of it. I've just seen panels and things, but I'll read the ape and I'll report back next week.
Yeah, Butterscotch, I don't know. Maybe I have this in a German translation, or it's something. I don't know.
Is it, Terence, didn't you send me Eros comic books? Was that Milos Manara comic book in there as well? With the Harlem Nights?
It might have been. Yeah, that's right. That might have been some Manara in there as well too. Sorry, just to sidetrack for a second here. Monsieur Maurice brings up a point that I wanted to make about this. Apparently, this whole last few pages here in this book are a reference to a Hugo Pratt story that he. And I don't remember the original context for the story. If it was just some text or something. And it was, and he visualizes it, and it's a direct quote from some Hugo Pratt stuff as well. So it's good that Monsieur Maurice brings that up there.
Yeah.
There you go. That's
I go into the torture chamber and hit myself.
Yeah.
I guess it would be very inspirational towards.
He just looked familiar to me, but of course, yeah. So
yeah.
That's just the Federico Fellini book.
Right. Okay.
The Voyage to Tulum. But let's leave Milo Manara, I guess. It's my turn.
He does draw some beautiful women. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
He does. Very. I wimped out, if this is a word, with blubber 2 weeks ago or so, because I really felt that this became a collection of porn scenes, and it's okay, but I thought I tried to redeem Mr. Gilbert Hernandez with some other freak out weirdo stuff, but that I like a lot more. And this is a collection here, Fear of Comics. It's in the line of the Love and Rockets books. It's number 17, I do believe. And it's just a collection. Yeah, volume 17, and this collects stuff that was not necessarily collected in the, or was published in the Love and Rockets magazines, but in some other comic books that they published, like Strange Love or something. No, it's not that I. Goody Good Comics, Hate, Peter Bagg, some kind of corporation there was, a 00 Vortex and whatever. And yeah, this is just some naughty Gilbert stuff here, but actually with some thinking done before, and really nice either nice compositions, interesting story bits and pieces that could play in there. Yeah, Birdland, but I like Birdland a lot more, even though it's really even more hardcore or whatever. But yeah, Birdland is just way out there, and I mean, you can't have more fucking on a page like in Birdland, just to put it this way. But still with some kind of story, and that's really the trick here. And this is a nice addition to the Palomar world. In some places, and in some places it's just totally bonkers. But one of my favorite side characters of Gilbert is Roy, this fat dude here, and with his girlfriend Judith, I guess it is.
He has a Beatles haircut.
Yeah, definitely. Judith. And when I want to go to a nice place, or to my comfort zone or whatever, I mean, the Final Frontier is really one way to go, but another, depends on my mood, is one of my favorite one-pagers of all time, and that's Roy in Serious Fucking. As you can see here.
Oh.
and really, I love each panel, and it's
right.
it's so great, rock and roll. And I really would love that they should publish this seriously in biology books for school kids. Just to transport. I mean, I have to tell you an old story of little Milan in school. I was 10 or 11, and we had sex education in school. And our teacher went on for half an hour about the problems of man and woman coming together in bed. So, and it is. I said in my and you have to do this, and you have to do that, and it bleeds, and it's slimy, and I pointed in the end of the lesson. I put my finger up and said, "Hey, Mrs. So and so, why they are doing this when it's so horrific and so terrible, and really me don't having any plan at all." And I know the teacher, she just talked, instead of just saying to me, hey, it's fun, it makes fun, it's a joy to do so. These words never came through over her lips, and so I think, just give the kids some serious fucking like this here. And on another note, I mean, you have the notions of the kids of today, especially when they are down there in the internet and have all kinds of body visions that they have to do when they're making love, and so this overweight guy with his pretty ugly girl having the greatest fun of their lives is just great. So and we have where is he? This is it. Here. Your new favorite pinup. I mean, he looks a bit more like Stephen Colbert to me, but full kudos to him. And
You've seen Stephen Colbert's Dink before, yeah.
Who draws themselves. So yeah,
it's pretty great. That's great.
I rest my case here. You have to get Fear of Comics. I mean, if you want to have more of this out there Gilbert stuff, and you don't mind the smaller format, it's all in this Comics Dementia here as well. It's just a bit smaller, but it contains. It has really. The book is smaller.
I know, but you know.
And it contains the double amount of pages, and really the stuff that is in here is not included anywhere else, at least in my pretty vast Love and Rockets collection. So maybe you go for this one here, and you have the full Roy. There are lots of Roy adventures over. It's just a really good character, very underrated in the Love and Rockets universe.
I might have to buy that Fear of Comics. Oh, what is it called? What is that one? The smaller edition? What is it called?
Comics Dementia, and I guess that's the series. Fantagraphics always keeps in print, so that should not be a problem at all to get this. Highly recommended. Yeah. The other one here is just for completists like me and who are a bit fetishist in terms of oversight. Having some, it's a bit bigger than the other. So sorry.
I can't find. Could you believe the Fear of? Oh yeah, I can. Oh, okay, cool. I definitely gonna have to get it because you talked about this very insightful way of teaching your kids about sex. I think this is the page I'm going to show my child when he's going to be of his age. I think
better than Sunflowers and Bees for sure. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Because they get this is the really. I think sex education is to be priority in this day and age, rather than finding out all the porno web pages for them to understand what actual sex life is, which is not really truth, and you not usually get that kind of what you see on that fantasy pages for adults. That's fantastic.
You can open like you want to be about it, but it's really a problem when you see that 11-old or 12-old kids almost inevitably have contact with this kind of stuff. I mean, it has to be disturbing.
Yeah.
And
it does.
I mean, imagine you're an 11-old boy and you see all this stuff, and then you look down at yourself, and what how can this become? Yeah. The world is always talking about the girls, but the boys are really the victims of our society sometimes. Boy power.
Okay, what the hell is going on here?
I don't know. My kids
this is pretty good.
This is probably. I think Sleepy Reader Damien is gonna be like kicking himself for not being in this conversation.
Yeah, well, I'll have to mark this one as for adults because YouTube will kick us off again. Rasa, what do you got for us next?
I am done.
Something with dicks in it.
No, unfortunately, I don't have anything else to share because I really had a busy week ahead. So, like this week was crazy. My child, who's 3.5, started preschool, so I had to take all my attention in that kind of sense. And then birthdays and other things just came into, and I completely blanked comic books in some way since a couple of days. So I just really didn't have the time to enjoy many of them. So. You can guys continue. I'll be listening and laughing probably and crying in the same time if it continues in this fashion, but yeah.
So sorry.
No, apologize. This is beautiful.
I just wanted to highlight Rickard Westman's comments here because they're pretty funny. I don't have a ton left. The stuff that I have left is more mainstream stuff. Let's see. Which nothing wrong with that. It's just what do I got here? Oh, this one. issue 3 of what's turning into me and my daughter's favorite. Issue 3 of Mamo came out.
Ah.
Complete shift from where we were. Man, every single one is kind of double sized, and it's still such a fun book. And again, it's every single issue. By the end of it, she's still like, oh my God, we got to wait a month. What's going to happen? Like, as I read through it, she gets closer and closer and cuddles and just is really absorbed with the story. This one is great. So so far they've been looking for Mamo's bones, which is this new witch. It was her grandmother, and we find out that our other character, I'm blanking on names here, she has some magical abilities, and one of those abilities is she's communicated in the past with these birds. So she's going to these birds for some help to find the bones, and we find out that the birds, Mamo actually came to the birds because she asked them to scatter her bones on purpose. She wanted to kind of disrupt the flow of magic. I imagine it has something to do with keeping her granddaughter in the city, but we get stuff like this as this bird kind of transforms into a bigger creature to communicate with them. Just such an imaginative book, so much fun, and all of these kind of great relationships and interactions. And I mean, there's no ads throughout this damn thing until the very, very end, the last page or two, if that. So you're getting, actually it's only one page. So for $4.99 American, yeah, this is literally the only ad that you get. That is it, the very, very last page. So we're talking a beefy story here. And we're absolutely loving it. We're completely on board. So the birds kind of take them around and they find a bunch of the bones. The idea being that they have to distribute and dispose of these bones and bury them in a very specific way to kind of put their town back in some sort of order to align all the magic in the town. And we're just getting into a point where we found out again what these birds had to do with it and why she has done that. They notice on their map, they're marking where they're finding these bones, and it's turning into a ring around the city that they think the Fae or the fairies have had something to do with. So they feel that it's a trap, and that's kind of where we left on this issue. They now realize that once they find this last bone, because they're on the last one now, that they're going to be stepping into a trap. So they're sort of preparing themselves for it. So yeah, I can't say enough about this. I'm really glad I gave it a shot. And like I said, it's completely, my daughter's turning 8. So, I mean, it's completely safe for her. There was in the first issue there, you see Mamo at one point up in the attic. That was such a minor little thing that didn't faze her too much, but the rest of it is just really appealing to her. And especially again, it's 2 female characters as the leads. I'm loving the art so much. She was asking about why are all the dots on here and stuff. So we started talking about Ben-Day dots and Zipatone screens, even though this is probably digital, but it just sparked a bit more of a conversation with us about like creating comics and things. But literally at the end of every issue, she's like, oh, that's it. What's going to happen? And she starts talking about what she thinks is going to happen. So it was the same experience with Bone. When we were reading Bone together, she had the same reaction. And it just kind of seeing her mind working and her imagination is just so much fun. So yeah, a beautiful book. And again, this Sass Millage is not a name that I'm familiar with. And the back covers are always really nice too. It's almost like you get a second cover. So really nice packaging from Boombox. So highly recommended, even for adults to read. Like I'm getting just as much out of it as she is. I find it interesting enough, and it's very cool. So yeah.
It looks very beautiful, dreamy like. Yeah. Very fantasy. Yeah.
And those landscapes and stuff, again, like it's not as much as it was in the first issue, but there is still, we're still getting this flow of the landscapes here that I just find I haven't really seen. Again, it's this portraying the landscape in a different way. I love all the kind of curves, the curvature to the landscape as they're moving through it. And these pages are just beautiful, really, really nice. Even though it's not a style that I would instantly be drawn to by any stretch. They find one bone and it's got the attention of all the sheep. So they have to do some magic to actually break the circle of the sheep so they can get at the bone. Yeah, very, very cool. It's very cool. Can't say enough good things about it. I don't know how many more issues there are. A couple more, I think. I'm guessing there's 5, but I don't know that to be 100%. But yeah. And then the other ones are just kind of, stuff that I've talked about before. I won't really talk about them too much, you know what I mean? So Justice League is still really fun. This issue was the best so far of these 3 issues. Nice House on the Lake is still really, really great. That the newest issue draws me in even more. It's issue number 4. Such a fantastic story by James Tynion. Really loving it a lot. And every single issue seems to give us a little bit more information that really piques my interest to the next level, right? So I'm really really enjoying this book quite a bit. And then Swamp Thing is the other one that I got this week too, and that one continues to be really good. This one we get quite a bit of insight into the main character, who's now Swamp Thing, getting more of his past and how he came to be this the avatar of the green, I guess. So that's such a fun one. So yeah, that's pretty much all that I read this week.
Is Swamp Thing ongoing series?
Swamp Thing is only 10 issues. It's going to be 10 issues, so it's on issue 7 right now.
Oh, okay.
So I'm sure it'll be collected pretty damn soon.
Yeah, I would definitely want to do that. And Nice House on the Lake, is it finished, or what is it so full about it that people is?
They're going to have, I guess there's going to be one more issue, I think, and then he's going to have a break. I don't know how many months, but it's quite an extended break. So I think Damien had talked about it, that now he's just going to wait. I'm really invested in the story. I do like seeing it. I'm just going to go with it. And then when the break comes, the break will come. Yeah. So I think it's turned people off a little bit.
So remind me a synopsis of that Tynion's book. What is it all about? What is this? Is it murder mystery or something?
Yeah, basically you get this collection of friends that have been summoned to this lake house, and they're sort of, I mean, how much do you want me to say? Because I guess I can tell you sort of the first issue. What you find out in the first issue is that they're now trapped in this place. He's brought them there for a very specific reason. The rest of the world, it's like the apocalypse has happened out there, but they're trapped now in this area, and there's this kind of invisible border, and he's handpicked these, I think it's 12, is it 10 or 12 people? I don't remember. 4, 8, it looks like it's 10 people that he has kind of befriended throughout his time. You find a little bit more about his friend. I don't want to spoil that part of it. It does come at the end of the first issue, but that's sort of the premise. So now they're existing and wondering what they can do. And I really like that dynamic, because you just see the way individuals are reacting to some of it. This character in this story, he's pretty much just accepted it, and he's trying to make the best of the situation. There's some people that are having a really, really hard time, like a very hard time. And then there's some that are just choosing to ignore it and just starting to kind of live their life like nothing is going on. You know what I mean? Like, whatever, we'll make dinner, we're going to have a party, let's go for a swim, let's go on the lake with the boat. You know what I mean? Trying to make the best of the situation and blocking out what they've seen is happening in the rest of the world. So it's an interesting premise. And again, it's fun because I don't know where it's going to go at this point. I don't really know. I don't have any expectations, and I'm just completely open to whatever story he wants to tell us. So,
and who's an artist?
I'm
so curious. Who's
Alvaro Martinez Bueno, and then Jordi Belair on colors.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, Jordi is well known for colors.
I'll just crack it open here. Copyright.
Yeah.
Trademark. So there's a kind of look at the interiors there.
Oh, that looks good, actually.
It's really nice. Yeah, it's very nice. It has this almost kind of pencil crayon kind of texture to everything,
Yeah.
Which lends itself to the story, I think. So, and the coloring is beautiful. Not so much in your face, a little more subtle.
It does kind of feel like DC's kind of style of artists. Like they've employed in recent days. It's very similar to Gerard. That guy, I forgot his name. He works with Tom King quite a lot.
Right.
And then, so it's kind of that kind of similarity to that kind of things, what they do now these days. So in DC world, in that that part. So that's black. It's Black Label. Yes, it's just offshoot of that.
Yes, it's Black Label. That's correct. Yeah, but comic size as opposed to the oversize that they do with the rest of the Black Label, or I think the rest of the Black Label stuff.
Like Batman, they have to make it oversized,
right,
to compensate.
Batwang. That's right. Yeah, full page spread. Yeah, so it's good. It's good. And I mean, I don't read too much, although looking at the stack, I was just about to say I don't read too much DC, but it's Swamp Thing, it's Nice House on the Lake. It's, it seems like I do actually read quite a bit of DC. Always that surprise for me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's it for me. What do you got, Earl Grey? What else do you got for us?
We can wrap it up if you call it a day, if you want.
Oh, just one before we go. I wanted. Did you watch that Doctor Strange episode of What If?
Oh God, yes, I did.
And what do you think?
I loved it. I absolutely loved it.
Yeah.
I thought. So I mean, anybody who hasn't seen it, I'll try not to do spoilers, but it's hard not to. You saw it, right, Rasa?
Yeah. Of course. I was talking about
it was a bit of a darker tone. I love that they took this kind of, like at the end of it, all of us are saying, again, it's a show that we watch with our daughter. And as it's going, I'm like, wow, this is kind of dark and kind of bleak. And then the way it ended, I'm like, me and my wife look at each other. We're like, holy shit, man, that's a dark story. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't end on a high note, but I loved that. I still thought it was an incredible story, and seeing this other dimension of him, this grief stricken and what he's going to do, like taking that power and at the end where that blackness is kind of closing in on him, it's like, dude, this is a heavy story. I was pretty impressed, to be honest. It was my favorite now of the 4 episodes I've watched. I haven't watched the newest one yet, but I thought it was pretty great.
Warning, the newest one is not child friendly either.
Yeah, we know that for sure, because I think it's the zombie one. So we've already told Lillian you can't watch it with us. It'll be way too scary. So
as a fan of Doctor Strange, that episode is really beautiful to look at. That other, like you say, grief-stricken Doctor Strange, for sure. One of my favorites. My husband wasn't like, is this it? So, but it seems to be for me, it was perfect. The way it ended, it actually kind of really good, like round up to the story of that darkness.
I thought, yes, same, yeah. So incredible. And again, like, that's take some balls to do a story with an ending like that. You know what I mean? Like you could have very easily just tacked on a little note to make it a happy ending, but the choice of having that as an ending, I thought was pretty brave for, something that I would consider extremely mainstream, very brave stance.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And I wonder if it's going to play in the movie at all. There's theories galore out there about all sorts of stuff that I don't generally pay any attention to, but because the Doctor Strange movie, and it feels like he's going to have a big part in the next kind of phase of these movies, I wonder if this is going to kind of come back, if there's going to be some sort of tie into this particular story, who knows, maybe not. But if there isn't, that's just as fine too. So, yeah.
It's actually the next episode as well is not bad. I'm tired of zombies. I just reaffirming every single time I look at zombies, like, oh, for God's sake, zombies again. Even in cartoon format, it makes me like, because it's quite intense, to be honest, and in that animation style they are doing it in. And then there's a couple of scenes where like, oh, wait a sec, and that's quite too much for me as well, kind of thing. But it's kind of as well, it's kind of strong storytelling for me as well towards this one as well. So anyway, I just wanted to know the Doctor Strange one if you watched it. But as a fan, it's beautiful. I think everybody who likes Doctor Strange, I think, would enjoy that episode for sure.
Yeah, I was really impressed. Very impressed. Right on. Okay. Well, that looks like it, people. Thanks very much to everybody who hung out with us as usual. The usual gang was in the chat. Always good to see everybody. And next week, whose turn is it next week?
I guess ich.
Okay.
Me.
Okay, perfect. Yeah.
Ich mach das schon.
Well, there you go.
It's your turn. Okay, perfect.
Okay.
Right on. So we'll see you next week. It'll be the same time. Like I said, we're going to stick with the same time. So an hour earlier than our previous ones. So come and tune in again. Thanks very much, everybody. And we'll see you next week. End broadcast. Where's the Dr. Monkeybot finger?